This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest Short Shots, the show where we focus purely on the short films. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me is Richard Hawes.
Hey, everyone.
This week's episode, we are taking a look at the works of a new Australian director called Alice Maio Mackay. And we've got three films of hers to look at. We're going to kick off with The Serpent's Nest. Then we've got Tooth4Tooth, and we're going to end up with Tale of the Laundry Game. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first film then is The Serpent's Nest. Sophia moves to a new town with her father for a fresh new start. But when it appears they have some sort of mind control powers, they are befriended by Jen, who also has some special skills of her own. Okay, so this one's set during the 70s in a sort of small town. I must admit, I've been to a place called Ballarat in Victoria.
Yeah.
And it has a sort of very familiar sort of feel to this. It's got the, sort of architecture, which is sort of part English, part American. It's got the wide roads, that sort of thing, which is sort of really interesting sort of setting, So our main character is Sophia. They are played by Jamila Main, who's a sort of non-binary actor. And I think she does a really good job as this character. I'm assuming that she's sort of playing sort of trans in the film. There is sort of reference, sort of few sort of disparaging marks, maybe other characters to point you in that direction. Mm-hmm. But she has a really good relationship with her dad, and she has this, this burgeoning relationship with Jen, sort of two outsiders who sort of find each other, as it were. I thought this was very enjoyable. How about you?
Yeah, it's a very engaging 26-minute film with very good production values, especially when you consider that the director was I believe 15. When she made it. That's astounding. We don't often hear of directors of particularly young film directors, and I was thinking to myself, is it such a massive surprise that somebody would be able to pull off like something like this, that as a teenager? I mean, part you've got the issues with school and stuff, but when you're young, some people are very creative and very productive, and especially in the music, the music world and stuff. We've seen a lot of people come up from, find success at a young age, young writers as well. But what's interesting here is, that film is much more challenging because it's collaborative. It involves so many facets, so many people, and the fact that Alice and the team at One Manor Productions, I believe it is, pull a short film of this length together. I mean, you might expect something of like 2 or 3 minutes maybe, but to be able to just make something so fully formed is impressive in and of itself. The film, looking at the film, regardless of its genesis, is it's got an interesting story, so the setting's really well done. I got a bit lost with some of the features, but in terms of the characterization and the sort of the supernatural elements that come into play, I thought that was all really well done. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but there's not really any explanation as to where these abilities have come from. No, and so these sort of characters sort of find each other. It's the new person in town, meets up with someone and sort of gets drawn away, and a little bit of a Lost Boys thing going on, and that it's. I think there's some scenes that didn't quite work for me, but overall, yeah, it's a good little film.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it handles the sort of new person in town sort of thing really well. At first she's sort of She's got the bitchy blonde sort of welcoming her and sort of showing her around, and then when her gender sort of comes to light at school or whatever, suddenly she's ostracized and people are making snide comments and things like that. It's a really good bit of editing as well to do with the sort of the boy who tries to warn her what's going on, who gets killed, is sort of made to look like a suicide. And the bit where he sort of jumps off the bridge is just a really, really good, clever piece of editing. I thought.
Oh yeah,
Just really well done. So yeah, this it feels like it's been made by people who are more established than they probably are, and I think that's probably in part down to this, the quality of the other people she's got working with us. For example, whoever is doing the editing, whoever's doing the cinematography. It doesn't feel like it's a school project. These are professional people lending their time, to make this film, and to have someone that young sell you their idea to get you on board to say, yes, this is a project that's going to be worth my time, regardless of whether you're getting paid for it, which it's really amazing, I think, that this was able to come to be.
Yeah, and I'd say the sense of time, the location, the relationships between the characters. I like the father character. This is, so many films have done these kinds of themes before, whether it's I think we'll mention it again a bit later, but like the Lost Boys, Diane Wiest brings the kids to town, and then there was also the Karate Kid, where Daniel LaRusso arrives with his mum and stuff. But so these are well-worn themes and tropes, but there's an added dimension here, because not only, the themes, the gender themes that come up in this would be challenging in a contemporary setting, but push this story back, and you're amplifying that quite considerably. But it doesn't. It could go in a number of different directions, but I think if anything, it underplays the situation and stuff. And I think that's to its credit.
It is very interesting, and the character of the dad is just he in the first scene together, he's trying to be the authoritative figure, sort of trying to tell his daughter not to smoke and all the rest of it, and sort of later on, trying to ground her and stuff. But he's, you get the impression that he's dealing with his child's situation in the best way he can. And that is just to be as supportive as he can, just to be a supportive parent, but never forgetting to be a parent, and trying to sort of give boundaries and that sort of thing, and be as fair as he can. So and he trips over the pronouns and things at times, and he can't get to grips with that side of it as much as she probably wants him to. But at the same time, he's doing what he can. He's of a different generation.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but he's able to convey all that in just a couple of scenes. So it's really, really cool. Yeah, it's a great little film. Not everything works for me. Like there's a girl in a coma who used to meddle with Jen, sort of doing spells and stuff, and ended up in a coma, and so she snaps out of it at the end, and the scene, I get what they're sort of going for, but the scene itself just didn't work for me personally.
Yeah, I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that myself. I thought that it was more, for me, there was a bit more confusion around the book and the application of that. I think I'd have to watch it again to sort of get a bit.
The book was interesting, because it wasn't like a spell book. It was more like a sort of a really dark, sort of hard-boiled noir sort of story.
Because this is where the title of the film comes from, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So you think it's going to have more relevance than it possibly does. I think at most it's the fact that I think the book belonged to the girl in the coma, or there was some note or something from her in the book, which sort of like is a clue for Sophia to sort of look into. But other than that, I thought this is very solid. I was really sort of surprised by the quality of it.
So what are you going to score it, Mike?
I'm definitely giving this a 7.
I will join you on a 7 as well.
2 7s for The Serpent's Nest. Our next review is Tooth4Tooth. While investigating the murder of a friend, a drag artist and an activist find themselves caught in an old war between those who feed on the blood of the fearful and those who feed on the blood of the hateful. So this is set in the sort of gay sort of red light district, I suppose, of somewhere like sort of Sydney, I imagine. And as it says, sort of the main character is a drag artist working in a club. His sort of young friend, I think it's his roommate, sort of goes home early, but disappears, and sort of spurs him and this other person on to investigate further. We've got sort of various other characters. There's this sort of right-wing religious group who are sort of
haranguing
outside
people
the
club,
going in and out of the club, and it turns out we've got sort of various vampires. Some are like vigilantes, sort of killing other criminals, and others are sort of just feeding on anyone they can sort of come across. A lot going on for a 17-minute film, I believe.
13 minutes.
13-minute film, yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot going on back and forth, but really well shot. All set at night. The photography is really, really good. Some good sort of special effects in terms of like prosthetics and things, and some good dialogue as well. So this really, really, really worked for me.
Yeah, it's also got for me, sort of that the best, one of the great things is the opening and closing credits for me, and the poster design. You know, the marketing essentially of the film with this poster is great. It's really eye-catching. The film itself, as The Serpent's Nest does have some similarities to the recent film Bit, which we covered on the main show, which is a really good film. And this has similar aesthetics, and the opening title comes up in a very neon font, neon pink kind of font that comes, which they return to neon at the end. I just love that. I love that extra effort that's gone there, because you see even big budget, or not big budget, but like big budget compared to this, like proper films where they just
it's
slap.
An afterthought, isn't it? Yeah.
They slap on a title with a really bland, font and stuff, and I just like the effort that's been gone to. Some short films don't even get posters.
Yeah.
Some feature films don't even get posters, but they've done some really nice work on that side of things, as well as the film itself. So if you like
it draws you into the film straight away, doesn't it? So as soon as the credits come up, it's like you're being pulled in right away. It's not like, okay, we're going to wait for the credits to go over and then sing. It's like, no, we're grabbing you now, get you in the mood. Yeah.
I also think it sort of reassures you when you see something of that quality that you're in good hands. And I'd already seen Serpent's Nest before, so I kind of knew what was in for. But this is very different stylistically, completely like the polar opposite essentially to Serpent's Nest, which does deal with some similar themes. But one's daytime, mostly daytime, and this one's completely nighttime.
Yeah.
Many characters in this, lots of factions at play, but the thing is, there's a lot going on, but you don't get lost. A lot of it's quite clear. Some of it's caricature. Like the religious fanatics and stuff. Some of the characters have to be quite broadly drawn, but the sort of supernatural outsider characters who come into play and sort of impact this community. That's all quite nicely done, and the performance. I'm sorry. I think if you're interested in seeing Bit, I think this is probably the perfect sort of appetizer to go with it. I think would warm you up for it, and then probably watch Serpent's Nest as well if you can. I mean, I think they would all work together quite well. For me, Tooth4Tooth was the more engaging of the films. than Serpent's Nest is a bit more of a slow burn. It's half the running time, whereas Tooth4Tooth is kind of got to get things going quickly, and it all happens. You could easily flesh it out to a feature if you wanted to, but I think as it is, even that it's a good little film.
Absolutely, I could easily see this sort of being sort of fleshed out into a feature. Like I said, it's already established a whole pantheon of characters that they could sort of flesh out, sort of various sort of motivations and things. The
other thing I wanted to mention, apart from the credits, is also, again, we're sort of saying about the involvement of very professional people with this young filmmaker, sort of getting these people. The music's by the very experienced composer Ben Worley, who's done many films with his brother, including my favorite short film of all time, which is Go Bag. But he's Hugh LeGrand, which we covered, Pizza Time, the Eric Jacobus one, even the film Apparition, which we covered. He did the score for that, I think. And so that's again another interesting thing to consider, is that these are very young filmmaker, very professional, collaborators,
yes.
which all helps. I mean, this is a film that can easily be a calling card that's going to catch the attention of potential investors or studios, whatever. So and that's an incredible thing to say for a filmmaker who's still in their mid-teens.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or was in their mid-teens at that time.
Was in mid-teens. So how are we going to score for Tooth4Tooth, Rich?
Well, I'm going to score it the same as Serpent's Nest. I still think it's a 7, but it's a higher 7 if you get what that means.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So 2 7s again for Tooth4Tooth. Our final review then is Tale of the Laundry Game. This is adapted from a Stephen King short story, and it sees 2 men who meet for the first time since high school. One of them works in a junkyard, the other one wants his car fixed on the sly, or at least fudged, so he can get keep it on the road. And they are joined in the past by an event. But for me, Rich, this was very unclear as to who had actually done what. For a long period, you think one person's done it, but then towards the end of it, I think somebody else had. So I was kind of confused there. But this is a sort of interesting. It's a bit of a sort of Shaggy Dog story. It's a tale told over numerous beers in the dead of night. Lots of sort of reminiscing going on and sort of other little shenanigans. And so as a sort of typical thing for Stephen King, so the sort of veneer of sort of modern living, respectable sort of living is sort of pulled away to reveal the sort of evil underneath. For me, this didn't work as well as the other 2 shorts we've covered tonight.
Yeah, it's I feel similarly. It's kind of the characters. Something happens, and sort of during the conversation, something is awoken in one of the characters. I think, and that's what, and this leads to him committing a I don't know what I don't know if I would say, but committing a crime, hurting someone, and I felt the film seemed like it was going back and forward in time quite a lot, but I don't know if that was just me getting a bit lost. I know there was the introductory scene, then they're reminiscing, and so there's a flashback there, but then there seems to be a bit of a flash forward, and then it sort of moved back again, which lost me slightly. I think it's trying to accomplish. This one is. This adaptation is 16 minutes. So again, it's sort of it's trying to tell a little horror story, much more of a sort of a pure horror story probably than the first 2 films we've discussed. And obviously, it's a Stephen King story. So there's the director hasn't put in, or the writer and director haven't put in any particular touches to make it more their own story. There's none of the themes of Serpent's Nest or Tooth4Tooth in this. It's very straightforward Stephen King adaptation. I mean, the main thing to sort of highlight is it's incredible that a probably 13 or 14-year-old when they were making this, or maybe 15. It's hard to know the timeline of how they accomplished all these films and in what time frame it was, but managed to get the rights. Officially, this is not a fan film, to officially get the rights to make a film based on a Stephen King story through Stephen King's what he calls his Dollar Baby initiative, where he's on his website, he's got any films that any of his stories that haven't been optioned or aren't in production or whatever. There's no conflicts. If you submit an idea and he likes it, or you proposal of what to do, he'll sell you the rights for $1, which is pretty amazing. So that's great in and of itself. I mean, that's going to capture an audience instantly. To do an adaptation of a Stephen King, you've got his audience. That's an incredible thing in and of itself. The film, as it stands, I'm not sure if it's because I'm not a massive Stephen King fan, although I do recognize the traits of his stories. Often they can be a little bit rambly and moving around in different sort of time frames and stuff, and obviously punctuated with these moments of extreme violence, often in a quite not unusually in a domestic kind of setting, something going a bit intense. But yeah, I don't think I engaged with this as well as I definitely didn't engage with it as well as the others.
Yeah.
But perhaps whether that's because I'm not a short Stephen King stories kind of guy, I don't know. But I got a bit lost. I think I would watch it again to try and figure it out a bit more. I think that there is a certain ambiguity, I guess, or something that what's the word looking for?
Enigmatic.
And yeah, it's more enigmatic. There's a bit more you've got to figure out with it. I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Christopher Nolan's made a whole career of not explaining everything to the ninth degree, and you've got to try and figure it out. Obviously, this is a different kind of thing, but you know what I'm saying. A bit more of an enigmatic story where you've got to try and fill in the gaps yourself to a certain extent, and try and keep up with time shifts and things like that. So, but the performances are excellent. I mean, the sort of the way the meeting between these old friends goes about, and then it changes, and it's sort of, you can see it on the face of the character. It takes a very dark turn as they recall some sort of some hideous thing they did in the past, and like a switch is kind of flipped. Obviously affects one of the characters more than the other.
Yeah. It's interesting, as we're talking about it, and earlier we mentioned the film Christine as well, which I caught sort of late last year for the first time in ages, and I can now see this sort of fitting into that sort of world, sort of different time setting, but I can see it set in that sort of place.
Well, again, that's got a garage and stuff,
exactly.
Isn't it?
There's all these
familiar
around
bits.
that sort of garage and things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see that. And that sort of blue collar sort of working stiff kind of sort of world that was set in.
And again, these sort of the craziness, that comes out.
We talked.
Again, that's kind of.
We were looking at the film, the Shadow Builder, the other week.
Yeah,
on
exactly.
The main show, and we talked about how that sort of felt like a Stephen King film. With that element, that sort of small town, and that sort of evil sort of bubbling underneath. Just waiting to be exposed.
Or even look at The Shining. The way Jack Torrance's character. I mean, I don't know. I know the film and the book vary and stuff, but that same kind of thing happens, whereas there's something malevolent that's, it's either coming from it's either an external force or something internal, but it changes you, and it affects the domestic situation. That's what happens here. I think it's an interesting little film. It didn't click with me entirely, but I'm sure many people, especially fans. I've read the synopsis, which on Wikipedia, was originally called Big Wheels: A Tale of the Laundry Game, from which he wrote in, I believe, 1980. And reading through the plot summary, it is exactly what you see in the movie. In this short film, basically. Yeah. I think it would fit very nicely into an anthology collection of, if you had a Stephen King adaptations anthology, that it would very neatly fit in.
Well, that must have been around about the time he wrote Christine, then, I think, isn't it? So the film came out about 84, 85.
It was
optioned straight away before even. Actually, it wasn't it? I think it was optioned before, optioned for a film before it was actually published. I think.
Yeah, you can find it. I mean, it was in a couple of books, but it's in Skeleton Crew, which also had The Mist in it, as well as I'm not sure if there were any others I'm particularly familiar with, but no, The Mist, which was obviously adapted by Frank Darabont. So I think definitely one for Stephen King fans. I think the fact that it's been made to such a high standard is very impressive. It's just, of the three, it's the one I was less interested. I think the fact that this is a director with such a clear voice of their own, I don't think they need to necessarily adapt other people's work. Although a lot of directors do that. They take different projects on board. So that shows the range, of what this director can accomplish at such a young age, and taking age out of the equation just is a very, very accomplished filmmaker. So I'd say of all these three are all really well worth seeing, but for me this is the sort of weak one. So I'm going to say 6 just based on that.
Yeah, I'm going to join you on a 6 as well. Again, it was just a little bit too murky for me as to what's actually going on. Maybe I do need to watch it again, and it will sort of stand up to another watch, I think. So Alice Maio Mackay, I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. She does remind me of the Monstrous Femme people, Hannah Mae Cummings and Emma Croghan.
Absolutely.
So definitely really interesting that we've got sort of these young filmmakers up and coming and doing such a good job. So we'll put links into the footnotes, either to the films or to the trailers, whatever we can get hold of for this. We do recommend you check out Alice's films, and just put a note in the comments. Let us know what you think of them. But that is the end of this week's show. So thanks to Rich for talking through Alice's films.
No problem at all, sir.
And don't forget to check out our main show, the DTV Digest, where we talk about films which didn't get to the cinema, but went straight to DVD, Blu-ray, or streaming media. Check us out on Twitter and Facebook for news about upcoming releases and the DTV chart. Thank you for listening, and tune in again soon.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.